I could start this video off by giving a rundown of SpongeBob, but really, what can I say that hasn't been said 1,000 times already? It's SpongeBob, a show with stuff like this.
Imagination.
Is this the Krusty Krab?
No! This is Patrick!
Chocolate? Chocolate! Chocolate! Chocolate!
Those clips pretty much speak for themselves. SpongeBob is a topic that has no limit in what can be discussed about it. In the case of this video, I wanted to take a bit of a relaxing approach to the SpongeBob topic by talking about the very first episode that I ever watched, BubbleStand, the 4th episode of the first season. Now, in regards to any episode from the first 3 series, people know it like the back of their hand, and BubbleStand is certainly no exception. Despite it being nostalgic, since it was my first ever episode, I can still analyse all the different aspects of the episode that all mesh well together to make it an enjoyable experience, and I figured it would just be nice to look at it through a more deeper and detailed lens and appreciating all the attributes, both big and small. So, let me break down how this will be structured. I'll quickly do an overview of the episode, which shouldn't take long at all considering most of you know all about this episode. Then I'll do the close-up and in-depth analysis, which will be the meat of this video so to speak. Here I'll look at all the interesting aspects and talk about them a little bit more. And lastly, I'll give my thoughts on the episode. I can't imagine much has changed in the years since I last saw it. All that sound good? Alright, let's go. BubbleStand kicks off with SpongeBob building, of course, a BubbleStand, which is a homemade business SpongeBob has come up with where the product is you can blow bubbles for just 25 cents. His grouchy neighbour, Squidward, sees this idea as absolutely ridiculous and wants no part of it. However, SpongeBob's best friend and fellow neighbour, Patrick, does decide to give it a try, although this attempt doesn't really go too well. SpongeBob offers lessons to Patrick on how to blow the perfect bubble. He demonstrates an interesting technique which is to be performed first before executing the task, and this technique produces many different bubbles, all shapes and sizes, but they share the common theme of all being so charming. Eventually, the pair's fun irritates Squidward to the point where he literally shoos them away after calling the activity lame, but Squidward's comments don't echo his thoughts as he tries to have a go himself, only to be stopped by SpongeBob since it is his business after all and Squidward must follow the policy. SpongeBob offers to help Squidward with executing the task, but Squidward ignores him and thinks he can do it without the important piece of the puzzle, the technique. Of course, not doing the technique makes Squidward fail many times, and SpongeBob and Patrick's calls to help him out eventually annoy him. So he mocks the duo by performing the technique, still not taking it seriously. But the technique proves to be the key to Squidward's bubble blowing, and he ends up blowing the largest bubble of all. Rather than thanking SpongeBob, however, Squidward brags that he did it all himself, and uses his superiority complex boost to get more attention as he plays the clarinet. However, karma soon catches up to Squidward when his bubble returns and picks up his house. The bubble eventually drops the house down from the ground, and it lands right back in its original spot. A key part of this episode is its relaxing tone, despite there being a few zany moments sprinkled in. The static location of the episode just being set in Con Street gives it a condensed, warming, cosy feel. Keeping with this theme, the surrounding atmosphere adds even more to this feel, as there are a lot of the softer music tracks that are played throughout, alongside just the natural ambience, especially the bubbles floating around in the water. Add to that, our only characters are the 3 main ones of the show, and of course the 3 of them always had good chemistry during these early seasons, making them bounce off each other really well and adding that certain unique dynamic of comedy that the 3 of them shared when on screen together. Sticking with the atmosphere, the addition of charm and comfort is added to it once SpongeBob begins blowing his bubbles. They're all different shapes and sizes, and all of them are based around elements that we all know, such as a duck and ducklings, cubes, a caterpillar, a tugboat, and an elephant. The best aspects of SpongeBob's attitude are all on full display here. He begins by deciding that he'll construct the bubble stand on such a peaceful day, unintentionally shattering the tranquility. This sudden burst of noise is obviously something Squidward doesn't appreciate, so he makes a complaint about it, and from there the consideration of SpongeBob is brought forward, as he says that he will quieten down at Squidward's request, which demonstrates that he didn't intentionally make all that noise on purpose, and he shows his good heart by thinking of others. The example of SpongeBob's consideration is shown once more when he offers to help Patrick and Squidward with blowing the bubbles after recognising the struggle they're having. When SpongeBob steps into the role of the BubbleStand owner, he takes on a managerial role, offering the service to customers nearby who might be keen on trying it, such as Squidward, who declines, and Patrick, who thinks the service is of interest. A strong element of this episode is that even though the BubbleStand business isn't something to be taken seriously, SpongeBob runs it because it's just fun and nothing more, and as for Patrick, he rolls with the idea of it being a business, and he asks SpongeBob how much it is. These brief scenes are actually a big indication of the depth of SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship. Patrick recognises that it's a fun activity, and to really make SpongeBob feel much prouder about his idea, Patrick goes along with the charade, just like friends do when they play together. They also showcase this attribute when Patrick asks to borrow a quarter from SpongeBob in order to use the service, so to speak. This light gag adds to the fun of the activity and also serves as the two helping each other, with Patrick first looking to kick it off with the payment, helping SpongeBob to start the fun, and SpongeBob giving the quarter to Patrick so he can in fact start it off, after expressing a struggle with not being able to pay, helping him carry out the kick-off if he'd like to call it that. Help goes both ways when it comes to friendship. Keeping with SpongeBob's attitude, the technique he comes up with is just so over the top, only something he could come up with. But an interesting quality about the technique is that it blurs the lines between ludicrous and practical, because at face value, SpongeBob's technique can't possibly be taken seriously, but it does in fact get the job done. Therefore, the expectations are completely flipped around. SpongeBob maintains his mature and professional attitude even in the times where things get hammy, such as the technique itself and the art of the bubbles, which also blur the lines, serving as a fun, light-hearted vision, but also a representation of the natural talent of SpongeBob. Because at the heart of something, if one is enjoying an activity and pushing themselves forward with it, then their talent shines through. Patrick finds dazzlement and awe from SpongeBob's bubbles, and his reactions are all genuine, even if he mistook the elephant for a giraffe. Patrick essentially represents two roles in the episode, himself and the audience, because our reactions are just the same to this display of art. Though art may not be the right term according to Squidward, as he finds the activity annoying and lame, but this might be just to hide his sense of fun, because he finds the bubble one tempting when it was sitting unoccupied. He tries to maintain his superiority complex when he states that blowing bubbles is easy, even being so cocky as to not give SpongeBob a real quarter. But his ego is fractured when he fails to blow a single bubble after multiple attempts, all because he's not doing the key element to make them come to life, the technique. He avoids taking the advice of SpongeBob as he believes it's silly, but decides to do it eventually out of annoyance and frustration, only to be proven wrong when the technique does in fact make him produce a bubble, the biggest one of them all. Squidward brings his ego back up when he states that he had the natural talent to blow that bubble, and SpongeBob had nothing to do with it, since Squidward wants to place himself on a pedestal. And that does temporarily happen, as the bubble he blows returns and consumes his house, pulling him up to the top, where he has a view down below of those he views as just that. But he doesn't stay there long, as the bubble lets Squidward go, and puts him right back in his place, both figuratively and literally. BubbleStand still holds up even now, which isn't surprising since it was one of the very first episodes of such an iconic show that had incredible clever writing during its early years. I love the fact that the three main characters are the only ones in the episode and that it takes place in just one location. The ambience and soft music tracks are so pleasant to listen to as well. SpongeBob is fantastic here, being able to come up with a unique twist on such a simple activity, having a blast while taking part in it, and also playing a role of sorts along the way, acting as a formal and polite owner of a legitimate business, and also being a teacher. SpongeBob coming up with the technique is only something he could do, stemming from his natural charm and charisma. The technique is also so clever as it merges many attributes together. It's so ridiculous at face value, but its inner workings prove that it's actually important and crucial to this bubble blowing activity. Again, only SpongeBob could take something so outlandish and turn it into something that could be taken seriously. Of course, the technique is iconic too, with pretty much anyone being able to quote it. I love all the designs of the bubbles too, creative and imaginative. You also can't hate Patrick here either. His innocent naivety is so charming because you know he's just there to have fun and doesn't mean harm. He's just completely lost in his own world. Need I say more about the elephant and giraffe joke? His dazzlement to the bubbles is so relatable because us as the viewers feel the same way. Squidward is hilarious. He's his usual grouchy self, being a stick in the mud at not finding bubble blowing fun. But of course, SpongeBob's charisma and natural talent to make it something enjoyable of course makes Squidward change his mind about it. I love that he gets so cocky about being able to blow a bubble, but just gets put in his place instantly. This was during the time where Squidward was likeable when it came to his anger, especially in this episode, because there's a lot of other things going on around him adding to the humour, so he's not the total punchline of the joke. Squidward's highly sprung attitude stemming from him blowing the big bubble also being taken back down by the very thing that made him gain that attitude is just such a clever element of this story. BubbleStand will always have a special place in my heart because it was the first episode I ever watched, and that's always the case with anything. And I'm happy that I can look back on this episode nowadays and notice all the small details that really make it the total package when it comes to being a classic SpongeBob episode. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. I'm Jay the Taz, and I'll see you next time.